So, have you ever really stopped to think about what separates a super smart AI from, well, you? I mean, it's not just about raw speed or how much data it can process. It's something much more fundamental, something we all use every single second without even noticing. It's common sense. And we're about to dive into why a machine, even today, still can't quite think like you do. To get our heads around this, let's start with something super simple. An everyday mystery you've probably solved a million times in your own life. We're going to call it the case of the missing sandwich. Okay, so let's get you involved. Put on your detective hat for a second. When something's just a little bit off in your world, keys aren't where you left them, a sock goes missing, how does your brain just instantly figure out what probably happened? Keep that thought in your head as we look at the evidence. All right, here's the scene, the 3 clues. First, you walk into your kitchen. Second, the sandwich you literally just made is gone from the counter. And third, you look down and there's your dog, kind of avoiding eye contact. And oh yeah, there are crumbs on the floor right by his mouth. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Case closed. The dog did it. That little leap you just made, that instantaneous jump from a few clues to the most obvious story, that's not just a hunch. It actually has a name. It's called abductive reasoning. It's not magic. It's a very specific kind of logic. And this, right here, perfectly shows us the single biggest hurdle that artificial intelligence is facing today.
To really get this, we kind of have to pop the hood on our own brains. It turns out we all have this mental toolkit for making sense of the world, with 3 main tools, and we switch between them all the time without even thinking about it. First up, we've got deduction. Think of this as pure straight-line logic. It's top-down. If you have a general rule that's true, then your conclusion is guaranteed to be true. Like, all mammals breathe air, a dolphin is a mammal, therefore a dolphin breathes air. It's certain, it's precise, and it's basically the foundation of all computer code. Next up in the toolkit is induction. Now, this works the other way, it's bottom up. You see a bunch of specific examples, you spot a pattern, and you make a general guess based on that. You know, the sun has risen in the east every single day of your life, so you infer it's probably going to rise in the east tomorrow. This is the logic of probability. And if that sounds familiar, it should. This is the engine behind machine learning. It's how your Netflix recommendations work. And that brings us right back to our missing sandwich and our star player, abduction. This is the logic of the best guess. You don't have all the facts, just a missing sandwich and a guilty-looking dog, and your brain instantly forms the most plausible story. It's not about being 100% certain, it's about what makes the most sense with the info you have. Okay, so let's just lay them all out, side by side, so it's crystal clear. Deduction starts with a rule to get a certain conclusion. Induction starts with specific examples to find a probable conclusion, and abduction starts with incomplete clues to find the most plausible explanation. 3 totally different but equally important ways of thinking. Now that we have our toolkit laid out, we can finally pinpoint the exact gap, the missing piece between human intelligence and artificial intelligence. So where does AI absolutely crush it, and where does it just fall flat? You know, when you look at it this way, it's shockingly clear. AI is an absolute genius at deduction. That's literally what running a program is. And it's a master of induction. That's what we call machine learning. But abduction, that whole common sense thing, understanding context, that's where it hits a wall. A big one. It can process the what, but it just can't get to the why. And the computer scientist Eric Larson really hits the nail on the head here. When you saw that guilty dog, your brain didn't even consider the infinite number of other absurd possibilities. You know, like a tiny burglar who only steals sandwiches, or a sandwich-eating ghost. It instantly filtered all that noise out and landed on the single most plausible idea. We still have no idea how to program a machine to have that kind of intuition. And look, this isn't a problem we can solve by just throwing more data at it. The core issue is that AI still fails when it has to understand that symbols actually have meaning in the real world, or when it means to juggle a bunch of different, sometimes conflicting rules at the same time. It can see the crumbs on the floor, but it doesn't understand what guilt even means. Okay, this might all seem a little academic, right? A missing sandwich. But this reasoning gap, it's not just a philosophical puzzle. It has had absolutely world-altering consequences.
So let's leave the kitchen for a minute and travel back to a secret military bunker in 1983 for the incredible true story of a man whose common sense literally saved the world. You have to understand the context here. We're talking 1983, and the Cold War it's not just cold, it's practically boiling. Tensions were just off the charts. President Reagan had just announced his Star Wars missile defense plan, and just a few weeks earlier, the Soviets had shot down a civilian passenger jet. The entire planet was on a knife's edge. So, picture this. Deep inside a Soviet early warning bunker, a lieutenant colonel named Stanislav Petrov is the officer on duty. It's just after midnight, and suddenly, sirens start wailing, and a single, terrifying word flashes on this huge screen in front of him: launch. And the system, it's not giving him vague information. It's specific. It's reporting a single missile launch from the US, then a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. And the computer's confidence level? Highest. As far as the pure, cold data was concerned, a nuclear attack was underway. This was it. But Petrov, he didn't follow protocol. He didn't immediately report an attack up the chain of command. He hesitated. Why? As he said later, I had a funny feeling. That funny feeling, that was his human intuition. That was his abductive reasoning kicking into high gear, telling him to go against all the data flashing right in his face. So what was that gut feeling? I mean, it wasn't random. It wasn't magic. It was a masterclass in abductive reasoning, happening under the most extreme pressure imaginable. Let's break down what his brain was doing in that moment that a computer simply could not. Let's just compare the two paths here. A purely deductive machine follows its simple programmed logic. If the system reports missiles, then report an attack. The outcome of that path? Almost certainly a full-scale nuclear retaliation. But Petrov's abductive mind, it started asking questions the machine couldn't even form, like why only 5 missiles? A real first strike would be hundreds, maybe thousands. What if the system is wrong? It just didn't add up. He was tapping into these deeply human abilities that AI lacks. He had context. He understood the strategic absurdity of a tiny 5-missile attack. He was weighing contradictory information. The satellite said yes, but the ground radar was showing nothing. And this is the big one. He could assess the consequences. He understood, in his bones, what a mistake would mean. World War III. Wow. I mean, Petrov's story, it's just a crazy, stark reminder that real intelligence is so much more than just processing data. And it raises these huge fundamental questions as we continue our journey towards something people call artificial general intelligence, or AGI. Because here's what it all boils down to. Genuine, human-like intelligence, it isn't about mastering just one type of thinking. It's about the fluid, seamless, almost unconscious ability to weave deduction, induction, and abduction together, to understand not just what the data says, but what it actually means. So we'll end on a question for you to think about. AI has flung open the windows of deductive logic and inductive pattern matching, and these tools are already changing our world in incredible ways. But can a machine ever open that third window, the window of abduction, and learn to ask and truly understand why?